The clank of metal doors echoed down the corridor, sharp and final, like a judge's gavel closing another chapter of a man's life. The new inmate stepped through the threshold of Ravenhill State Penitentiary with his eyes lowered and his hands still trembling from the cold cuffs. His name was Eli Cross, age 42, occupation, none listed, history, blank. To the guards, he was just another number. To the prisoners, he looked like prey. He moved quietly, almost too quietly, head shaved close, face unreadable, posture relaxed but alert. His eyes didn't wander, didn't challenge, didn't fear. They observed, calculated. But to men who survive by reading weakness, silence looks like surrender. "Yo, look at the new guy," a voice boomed across the yard. Rico, 6'3", prison yard royalty. Tattoos up to his neck, the self-proclaimed king of C-Block. He had a following of loyal dogs, Dino, Spider, and Tank, the kind who'd kill for a laugh. Quiet type, huh? He thinks if he keeps his mouth shut, nobody'll notice him. The laughter spread like wildfire. Eli kept walking. No reaction, no eye contact. That was mistake number one, at least in their world. Rico swaggered closer, his boots echoing on the cracked concrete. "Where you from, old man?" Eli didn't answer. Spider shoved him from behind. "Boss asked you a question." Eli stumbled a step, regained balance without turning. His breathing didn't change. That control, it irritated them more than defiance ever could. "Yo, you deaf? We talk to you, you talk back. That's how it works." He snatched Eli's tray from his hands and dumped the slop onto the floor. "Clean it up with your hands." For a brief moment, Eli just stood there, staring at the spilled food, steam rising between their boots. Then slowly he knelt, not in defeat, but in patience. He began scooping the mess into the tray again, calm, methodical. The yard howled with laughter. Rico grinned. "Look at this clown. Ain't even gonna fight back." Eli finally looked up, and for a split second, Rico froze. There was something in those eyes. Not fear, not anger, just depth. Cold and endless, like a man who's seen things no one should survive. But before Rico could process that flicker of unease, Eli looked down again and finished cleaning. No words, no defiance. When he stood, Rico leaned close and whispered, "Welcome to Ravenhill, janitor. You belong to me now." Eli walked away without a sound, tray in hand, his back straight as steel. He didn't flinch when the guards ignored the humiliation. He didn't speak when the laughter followed him down the corridor. Because Eli Cross had a rule, the same rule that kept him alive in Beirut, Caracas, and 23 black sites no one would ever admit existed. Never fight the first battle. Save it for when it counts. What no one in Ravenhill knew, not the guards, not the gang, not even the warden, was that the quiet inmate they mocked wasn't there by accident. He'd been sent inside on a mission, and by the time it was over, every man who laughed at him would wish he'd never opened his mouth.
The next morning, Ravenhill woke before dawn. Metal doors clanged open, guards barked roll call, and the air smelled of bleach and rust. Eli moved like clockwork, eyes down, steps measured, never late, never slow. To most, he looked like a model inmate. To Rico's crew, that made him the perfect toy. By the third day, they'd memorized his schedule: laundry duty at 6, kitchen line at noon, showers at 7. The first lesson came in the laundry room. Eli was loading sheets into an industrial washer when Spider killed the lights. A shove from behind. The door slammed. Click. Locked. Time for orientation, Rico's voice echoed in the dark. The hum of the machines was the only sound. Dino struck first, a slap meant to startle. You hear the rules yet, old man? You work for us. You fold what we tell you to fold. Eli didn't answer. His breathing stayed steady. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. The same rhythm he'd used in interrogation rooms halfway across the world. Say something, Spider hissed. A mop handle cracked across Eli's back. He staggered, caught himself on the washer's edge, and turned, slowly, carefully, like a man checking the wind before a storm. Clean it up, Rico said, with your tongue. Laughter, cheap, cruel laughter that fills the air like gasoline. Eli lowered himself to one knee, picked up the fallen mop handle, and set it gently against the wall. Then he went back to folding sheets, methodical, precise, unbothered, every motion deliberate. Yo, is he ignoring us? Dino scoffed. Spider spat at his boots. Maybe he's broken already. Rico frowned. Something about that calm. It wasn't surrender. It was study. But he shook off the feeling and swung the door open. We'll make him scream tomorrow. By lunchtime, the story had spread. The new guy didn't fight back. That made him fair game. Eli took his tray, plain oatmeal and a scoop of beans, and sat in the far corner. The noise in the cafeteria dimmed as Rico's crew approached. Yo, janitor, Rico barked, loud enough for the guards to hear and ignore. You forgot to shine my boots. Eli looked up briefly. His gaze landed on the mud-stained boots, then lifted to Rico's smirk. No words. He returned to his meal. Rico upended the tray into Eli's lap. Beans splattered, silverware clattered to the floor. Laughter rippled through the hall. Guess you eat off the floor now. The guards turned away. No one wanted trouble with Rico. Eli wiped his hands on the paper napkin, folded it neatly, and stood up. Are you done? He asked quietly. The table went silent for half a heartbeat. Rico grinned. Oh, he talks. Yeah, I'm done. You got a problem? Eli shook his head. Not yet. Rico's grin faltered for just a blink, then came back wider. Not yet, huh? You got jokes. You keep those coming. As Eli walked out, the gang's laughter trailed behind him. But the older inmates who'd been watching, men who'd survived long enough to know real danger when they saw it, looked uneasy. They'd seen that stillness before, in men who carried war inside them.
Evening. Steam hissed. Water drummed on tile, and the smell of cheap soap hung in the air. Rico's men cornered him again. No witnesses this time. Let's see if you bleed quiet, too, Spider said, gripping a sharpened toothbrush. Dino shoved Eli against the wall. The tile was cold on his skin. Rico stepped closer, voice low. You keep ignoring me, old man. I start thinking you think you're better than me. Eli's voice was calm. I don't think about you at all. Rico froze mid-sentence. The room tilted. Then he laughed. Too loud, too long. You got a mouth after all. He swung, open-handed. The slap cracked against Eli's cheek. The sound echoed through the showers like a gunshot. Eli didn't move. Rico hit him again. Still nothing. You don't even blink. What are you, some kind of robot? Eli's eyes lifted. Gray, unblinking, utterly still. You'd be surprised what kind of men end up in places like this. The words landed like ice water. Then he turned, picked up his towel, and walked out past them as if the beating hadn't happened. Behind him, Rico whispered to Spider, "What the hell is with this guy?" Eli sat on his bunk, eyes closed, palms resting on his knees. Inhale, exhale. The cell was small, concrete walls sweating moisture, the hum of fluorescent light constant. But inside his mind, it was quiet. He remembered a voice, his handler years ago. "Cross, you don't break cover unless mission integrity fails, not for pride, not for pain." He had failed plenty of missions in his time. He wasn't about to fail this one. From the next bunk, his cellmate, Thomas Vega, a wiry former Marine with tattoos fading into scars, watched him. "You're going to take that from him again tomorrow?" Vega asked. Eli opened his eyes. "Tomorrow isn't the day." "What day is it then?" "The one that matters." Vega studied him. "You military?" Eli gave a half smile. "Something like that." The gang had grown bold. They pushed Eli in the chow line, tripped him on the track, and laughed as he landed hard on the dust. The whole yard was watching now, waiting for him to explode. But he didn't. Every fall looked accidental, every shove absorbed. His silence became legendary. That afternoon, Rico went further. He stole Eli's blanket and ripped it in half in front of the block. Comfort is a privilege. You earn that when you crawl. Eli stood there, eyes locked on the torn fabric. Then he bent, picked up one half, folded it carefully, and placed it on his bunk. Rico spat. "You ain't human, man. You a ghost." The word stuck in the air. Ghost. The same name whispered years ago in foreign safe houses when the CIA needed the impossible done. Rico laughed. "Yeah, Ghost. That's your name now."
Vega couldn't sleep. "Why do you let them do this?" he asked. "You're not scared of them. I've seen scared." Eli looked at the ceiling. "Fear's useful. Anger isn't." "They're gonna kill you." "Not yet." Vega sighed. "You sound like a spook." Eli's lips twitched. "Used to be." Before Vega could ask, footsteps echoed in the corridor, guards making rounds. Eli closed his eyes again. He was counting them. 6 steps each patrol, 2 guards per rotation. Patterns. Always patterns. Morning inspection. Rico bribed a guard to switch the schedules, assigning Eli to janitorial duty in C Block, the gang's territory. The message was clear: isolation. As Eli mopped the corridor, Spider leaned in the doorway with a grin. "Hey, Ghost, you missed a spot." Rico flicked his cigarette at the wet floor. "Clean it with your tongue like last time." He paused, mop still in hand. For a moment, no one breathed. Then he smiled faintly. "If I do, would that make you feel taller?" The words landed soft, but sharp enough to draw blood. The gang froze. Rico's grin faltered. "You got jokes now?" Eli's eyes stayed calm. "Just perspective." Rico stepped forward, chest puffed, veins bulging. "You think you're smart?" "I think you're loud. Loud men don't last long in places like this." Rico's face darkened. He lunged, hand gripping Eli's shirt, but the mop handle swung up between them, gentle as a warning, stopping an inch from his throat. Not an attack, a boundary. Then he set it down and resumed mopping. For the first time, Rico didn't laugh. He just stared. There was control in that move. Perfect control. "Watch your back, Ghost," he muttered, backing away. Eli didn't answer, but the faint reflection in the wet floor showed the truth. A small smile, cold and knowing. Vega leaned over. "You just signed your death sentence." Eli shook his head. "No, I started the clock." "Clock for what?" "For justice." He looked out through the bars, eyes fixed on the guard tower lights flickering against the night sky. Somewhere beyond those walls, his handler was waiting for confirmation that the corruption inside Ravenhill ran all the way up to the warden, and Eli Cross was almost ready to give it to them. But first, he needed one more thing: proof. The next morning came with a storm. Thick gray clouds rolled over the yard like smoke, and thunder cracked somewhere beyond the razor wire. Rain came in thin, bitter sheets, hammering the windows of C-Block. Rico's crew had been quiet since the mop handle incident. Not silent, just quiet enough to make everyone uneasy. That's when you knew violence was coming. Vega felt it first. "They're planning something," he murmured from his bunk. Eli was already awake, sitting cross-legged, eyes closed. They had been planning since day one. They're just trying to figure out how to make it public. Janitorial duty again. Different hall this time, administrative wing. Clean, mop, disappear. But for a man like Eli, cleaning meant something else. Every sweep of his mop left a reflection. Every reflection revealed a new angle. Camera placement, guard blind spots, hidden microphones, badge routines. He was mapping the place. 3 cameras in corridor C7, 1 dead zone between the lockers and the maintenance store. 2 guards on rotation every 20 minutes, 1 lazy, 1 alert. The same rotation pattern from when he'd worked covert extraction for the CIA. He whispered to himself just once: pattern, timing, leverage, the code of survival. The cafeteria buzzed louder than usual. Rico sat at his table, surrounded by his crew, pretending to eat. His laughter was forced, his eyes calculating. Spider leaned close. "You want me to take him out tonight?" Rico shook his head. "Nah, that's what he wants. He's waiting for us to rush him. We do this smart." He nodded toward the guards at the far end of the hall, 2 of whom wore the telltale patch of Warden Harlan's Special Supervision Unit. "They'll help us, for the right price." Spider frowned. "You paying guards now?" Rico's grin was thin. "They ain't guards. They're businessmen." Eli sat across from Dr. May Carter, the prison's psychologist, or as the Bureau called her, Handler Echo 3. "Report," she said softly, pretending to jot down notes on her clipboard. Gang control still centered on Rico Morales. Guards compromised. Section leads taking payoffs for drug drops through kitchen routes. The wardens laundering through inmate labor funds. Confirmation? Not yet. Need visual proof or a transaction trail. I'm close. She glanced at the fading bruise on his cheek. They've escalated. It's expected, he replied. They're testing the silence. She hesitated. And your restraint? Eli's eyes flickered just briefly. Holding, for now. She scribbled a note. Subject maintaining cover. Risk threshold rising. Careful, she said quietly. You break too soon, we lose everything. You wait too long, we lose you. He nodded. I've been in worse places. She looked up. No, Eli, you haven't. Rain turned to steam under the noon sun. The yard buzzed with movement. Basketball, weights, cigarettes, schemes. Eli jogged the perimeter, slow and steady. Vega kept pace beside him, whispering,
That shrink, she's not a normal counselor, is she? Eli didn't answer. Come on, man. I wasn't born yesterday. You talk like military, breathe like intel, and you don't flinch when knives flash. You're not here for time. You're here for something. Eli slowed, glanced toward the guard tower. You ever see a place like this rot from the inside out? Vega nodded. Yeah, Iraq, Afghanistan. Corruption smells the same everywhere. That's why I'm here, Eli said, voice barely above a whisper. Before Vega could ask more, a whistle blew. Recreation was over. But Rico was watching from the fence line, eyes narrow, lips curling into a smile. So the janitor's got a friend now. Cute. It happened during lights out. A scuffle 2 cells down, guards rushing in, chaos. And in the confusion, contraband. A shiv planted beneath Eli's mattress. Cell search, one of the guards barked, his tone too eager. They tore the place apart, flipping blankets, dumping belongings. Vega tried to intervene. He didn't. Shut up, the guard snapped, shoving him back. When the blade turned up, the other guard whistled. Well, look at that. Seems your janitor's been busy. Eli didn't move. That's not mine. Rico's laughter echoed from across the block. Sure it ain't, Ghost. The guards didn't care. The paperwork was already written before the blade was found. Within the hour, Eli was in solitary. Small concrete box, 1 bed, 1 light, 1 slit of window. Most men broke in isolation. He used it. He sat cross-legged on the floor, breathing slow, eyes closed. His mind rebuilt the last 7 days like a puzzle. Guard movements, bribed schedules, security patterns, faces, voices, smells. Every detail cataloged. Someone made a mistake. They'd left fingerprints, figuratively and literally, on that frame-up, and he would use it. A faint buzz broke his focus. The vent in the wall clicked open slightly, and a folded scrap of paper slid through. He unfolded it carefully. A single line, written in Dr. Carter's code. They moved the money. You have 48 hours. Eli smiled for the first time in days. It was time to end the silence. He returned to the block like nothing happened. The gang was waiting. Rico clapped, slow, mocking. Look who's back from the hole. Miss me? Eli didn't look at him. You should be more careful where you hide your blades. The guards might start checking your fingerprints next time. Rico's smile vanished. Would you say? Eli kept walking. Nothing that'll save you. The block went still. Rico lunged, but a guard barked, Enough! Before contact. Not for Eli's sake, for orders. Still, everyone saw the fear flash across Rico's face. That seed would grow. Spider confronted him again. You think you're smart, Ghost? He hissed, holding a sharpened spoon. You think we don't know you're talking to someone? Eli didn't answer. He just stared. Calm. Surgical. Spider faltered for half a second, then thrust the blade. Eli's hand moved once. Fast. Precise. A twist of the wrist. A shift of balance, and Spider was on the floor, gasping. The weapon gone. Eli knelt beside him, speaking low. Walk away, Spider. I don't want to hurt you. Spider's voice trembled. Who are you? Eli's expression didn't change. Someone you should have left alone. He placed the spoon on the tile beside him and walked out. No one saw the move clearly, but everyone saw the aftermath. By dinner, half the prison was whispering. Rico slammed his fist into the wall of his cell. "Enough!" he shouted at Dino and Tank. "He's making us look weak!" Dino hesitated. "Maybe we leave him alone, boss. Guys, he's not normal." Rico grabbed him by the collar. "Are you scared?" Dino didn't answer. "We end this tomorrow, in front of everyone. No more games." Up in the tower, one of the businessmen guards lit a cigarette and spoke into his radio. "He's getting too much attention. You sure about tomorrow?" A voice crackled back. "Warden Harlan. Do it. Make it look like a riot if you have to. I want Cross erased." "Copy that." Vega watched as Eli sharpened a pencil down to the wood, then used the graphite core to trace small lines along his wall, an old field trick for signaling patterns in case of emergency. "What's happening?" Vega asked. "They're closing the net," Eli said. "The warden's dirty. He's using Rico's gang as muscle." "How do you know?" "Because he's sloppy, and because he just made his biggest mistake." "Which?" Vega frowned. "He thinks I'm still the janitor." Eli stood, straightened his uniform, and looked through the bars at the sleeping block below. "Tomorrow, we end it."
Ravenhill woke restless. The air felt wrong, thick, electric. Guards barked louder, doors slammed harder, and even the radios hissed static. Vega noticed it immediately. "They're staging something," he muttered, pacing their cell. Eli tied his boots in silence. "Let 'em." "You're not walking into it, are you?" Eli glanced up. "I've been walking into traps my whole life. The difference is, I walk out." A whistle screamed through the corridor. "Yard duty." By mid-morning, the yard buzzed like a nest about to erupt. The sky hung low and gray, the fences shimmered with heat. Rico and his crew were already there. Tank lifting weights, Spider nursing his bandaged wrist, Dino scanning the towers. Near the bleachers, two guards exchanged a nod. One slipped something beneath the bench, a shank wrapped in tape. The plan was simple. Rico would provoke a fight. The guards would respond, and Eli would end up dead in the chaos. Clean, contained, disposable. Eli walked onto the yard carrying a mop bucket and broom, his daily cover. His eyes tracked everything: the guard tower angle, the distance to the infirmary, the empty corners where cameras never reached. He felt it, the shift in air pressure before violence. He whispered to himself, 3 shooters, 2 blinds, 1 exit. Vega caught up with him, whispering, "You sure you want to be out here?" Eli said quietly, "Stay clear of the bleachers, and if it starts, drop fast." Rico's voice boomed across the yard. "Hey, janitor, you forget whose yard this is?" Eli didn't answer. Rico strode closer, jaw clenched, hand twitching. "Word is you've been talking to the doc too much. Maybe you're a snitch." He grabbed the mop handle, snapped it in half. "You clean with that mouth, old man?" The yard froze. Conversations died. Even the guards on the fence line leaned in. Eli's gaze rose slowly. "If you touch me again, Rico, make sure it's worth dying for." Rico laughed loud and theatrical. "Oh, I plan to." He swung. The first punch landed on Eli's shoulder. The second never made contact. Eli sidestepped, redirected the blow, and Rico stumbled forward into the dust. Shouts erupted. Spider drew the taped shank from under the bench. Guards looked away. Cameras glitched. Vega shouted, "Eli!" Spider lunged. The blade flashed. And in less than a second, Eli moved. A blur of motion, left pivot, grip, disarm. The weapon spun free and clattered onto the concrete. He didn't stab back. He didn't even hit. He simply twisted Spider's wrist until the man screamed and dropped. Rico roared and charged again, slamming into Eli's ribs. They crashed into the ground. Dirt flew. Fists flew. From the tower, a guard reached for his radio. Now. The siren wailed, long, shrill. Gas canisters arced into the yard. Smoke exploded everywhere. Panic, chaos. Inmates scattered. Some fought. Others dropped flat. Guards stormed in, swinging batons. But this was no standard riot. It was orchestration. The chaos gave cover for one thing: eliminate Eli Cross. Through the fog, a guard raised his shotgun, rubber rounds, at least officially. Eli spotted the muzzle flash just in time. The shot slammed into his chest, knocking him back. Pain blossomed, breath gone. He rolled, gasping, tasting blood. Rico's silhouette loomed through the smoke, knife in hand. "Should have stayed quiet, ghost." Eli barely caught the first slash. The blade grazed his arm. The second came faster. Eli blocked with the broken mop handle, redirected the wrist, and struck, one clean elbow under the jaw. Rico fell to his knees, dazed. But the guards weren't helping. They were closing in, rifles raised. Eli's instincts took over. He swept Rico's legs, disarmed him, and dragged him behind a concrete barrier. Rubber rounds peppered the wall, chipping concrete. "Friendly fire?" Vega shouted from across the yard. "Not friendly," Eli hissed. He glanced up. The tower light blinked twice, paused, blinked again. The bureau signal. Dr. Carter's voice echoed faintly over the intercom, disguised under the chaos. "Extraction compromised. Evidence priority. Confirm warden corruption." Eli gritted his teeth. "Copy," he muttered. He needed proof right now, or this would end in silence and smoke.
Amid the riot, Eli slipped through the chaos, blending with fleeing inmates and guards. He moved low through corridors slick with tear gas residue until he reached the administrative wing. He knew the route by memory. He'd cleaned here for days. At the end of the hall, the warden's office. Locked, but not to him. He pulled a slim piece of metal from his boot heel, a lock shim, CIA standard issue, disguised as a janitor's tool. 2 clicks. Open. Inside, monitors flickered with security feeds. Files scattered across the desk, ledgers, bank transfers, coded notes. He scanned quickly, then found it. A drive labeled Maintenance Fund Transfers Offshore. He pocketed it, wiped the desk clean, and turned to leave. But the door opened first. Warden Harlan stood there, gun drawn. "I should have known. You weren't like the rest. Who sent you?" Eli's tone was even. "You already know." "CIA, FBI, doesn't matter. You won't leave here alive." Eli took a slow step sideways, angling toward the blinds. "Then you'll have to explain why the Bureau is watching your feeds right now." Harlan blinked. "What?" "Check your monitors." The top right screen changed. Federal seal. Live transmission from an unknown source. Dr. Carter's face appeared. "Hello, Warden." Harlan's hand trembled. "You." Before he could fire, Eli kicked the desk forward. The gun went off, shattering a monitor. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, disarming him with surgical precision. The weapon clattered away. Eli pinned the warden to the wall. "You ordered the riot." "You don't understand," he gasped. "They paid me.
Cartel money, Say it louder, Eli said, pressing the man's head against the wall mic. Say it for the Bureau. He choked out the words. Cartel, money, through maintenance contracts. Good, Eli said. That'll do. He cuffed Harlan with his own restraints and pushed him into the hallway just as guards burst through. Hands up, one shouted. Eli raised his. He's your problem now. By the time they escorted Eli back outside, the riot had died down. Dozens of inmates lay cuffed on the ground, the air still thick with smoke. Rico was among them, coughing blood, eyes wide with disbelief. You're no janitor. Eli crouched beside him. No, but I did clean up. Rico tried to speak, but Eli's gaze stopped him cold. You've got one chance to start over when this place changes hands. Take it. Rico looked away. He didn't laugh this time.
Hours later, Dr. Carter stood behind a wall of agents as evidence streamed in. Harlan's confession, the drive, financial trails, the live feed from Ravenhill. Subject cross secure? An agent asked. For now, she said. He's been through worse. On the monitor, Eli sat alone in the infirmary, shirt torn, chest bruised, but breathing steady. Vega limped in under guard. Heard you saved half the yard, he said. Eli looked up. That wasn't the plan. Yeah, well, plans change. Vega sat beside him. What happens now? Eli glanced at the window where dawnlight was beginning to creep in. Now comes the part they never see, the cleanup. Outside, bureau vans rolled through the gates. Federal agents took control of Ravenhill. Guards were lined up for questioning. Harlan was escorted out in cuffs, eyes hollow, muttering about deals and offshore accounts. And through it all, Eli watched from the shadows, silent as ever. Dr. Carter approached. You did it. Eli shook his head. Not yet. The rot runs deeper. She studied him. You can walk away, Eli. He gave a small, tired smile. Ghosts don't walk away. We fade. Ravenhill woke to silence, the kind that feels heavier than noise. Smoke still clung to the corridors, the smell of burnt rubber mixed with disinfectant. Inmates whispered. Guards avoided eye contact. Word spread fast. The warden had been taken away in handcuffs at dawn. But inside C-Block, nothing felt over. If anything, it felt like something bigger was just beginning. Vega leaned against the railing, whispering to Eli. They say the feds are here. You starting to look like you knew this was coming. Eli didn't answer. He was watching the towers, the gates, every moving piece of the machine he'd just cracked open. This place is about to eat itself. We're not done yet. By noon, the Bureau had taken over the administrative wing. Agents in black windbreakers sealed off records, hauled servers into crates, and questioned guards one by one. Dr. Carter moved through the chaos like a surgeon in an operating room. She caught Eli's eyes through the glass partition. A subtle nod, acknowledgement, not relief. He was escorted to an interrogation cell, hands cuffed, uniform torn, face still marked from the fight. You did it, she said once the door shut. Not yet. The network outside these walls is still running. Harlan was a valve, not the engine. Then where's the engine? Eli looked up at the ceiling camera, watching this conversation right now. The feed cut abruptly. The camera light blinked off. Carter exhaled. They're already scrubbing files. Then we make noise before they finish, loud enough the Bureau can't bury it.
The Bureau thought the riot was over. It wasn't.
Down in the laundry tunnels, Ravenhill's forgotten basement level, a different kind of meeting was happening. 4 remaining gang lieutenants, Rico's replacements, were whispering with 2 off-duty guards. Their message came from outside. Destroy everything that connects this prison to the money trail. By dusk, small fires were breaking out in evidence rooms. Paper trails vanished in smoke, hard drives disappeared into duffel bags. Dr. Carter raced through the command center. They're burning evidence from the East Block. Who authorized access? No one, she snapped. Find Cross now.
Eli was already moving before the alarm hit. The chaos outside his window had told him everything, too controlled, too deliberate. He cut through the corridor, slipping past the distracted agents, heading for the maintenance wing. Vega caught up, breathless. "You planning on getting yourself shot again?" "Not if I move faster than their orders." They reached the basement stairs. Smoke curled up from below. The air was thick with diesel and burning paper. At the bottom, the 4 gang lieutenants and 2 guards loading crates into a laundry truck. Inside the crates, stacks of encrypted drives, sealed ledgers, and cartel communication equipment. "End of the road," Eli said, stepping out of the shadows. The men froze. "You think one riot shuts us down?" one of the guards hissed. "You just exposed yourself, janitor." Eli smiled faintly. "Funny thing about ghosts, they look exposed right before they disappear." The first man raised his weapon. Eli moved first. A blur. 2 disarms, one body slammed against a crate, the other knocked out cold with the gun's own stock. Vega joined in, ducking a swing, grabbing a crowbar, and sending another guard sprawling. When it ended, 4 men lay groaning on the floor. The truck keys dangled from Eli's hand. He climbed inside, flipped the ignition, and reversed the truck straight into the yard gates, crashing through before anyone could stop him. Agents surrounded him instantly. Carter ran out, yelling, "Don't shoot! He's got the evidence!" They pulled the crates from the truck, burned around the edges, but intact. Hard drives, ledgers, video proof of cartel payouts to officials in 3 states. Carter turned to Eli. "This is it. This is everything." "Then use it before someone higher up buries it again." Within an hour, she had a bureau tech team patching into national servers. A dozen screens came to life, each one displaying the corrupted payments, guard transfers, drug routes, all live-streamed from Ravenhill itself. "Go public," Eli said quietly. "Right now." Carter hesitated. "Once it's live, there's no going back. You'll be exposed too." Eli looked out at the yard, where agents were rounding up guards. "I was never here to hide." The feed went live. Across the country, newsrooms lit up. Viewers watched in real time as a prison janitor, unknown, uncredited, uncovered one of the largest corruption webs in federal history. Social media exploded. Hashtags flooded every platform. Hashtag Ravenhill leaks, hashtag prison ghost, hashtag clean from inside. Inside the prison, inmates gathered around the TVs in stunned silence. For the first time, they weren't watching chaos or violence. They were watching truth. Vega whispered, "You really did it, didn't you?" Eli didn't answer. He just kept watching the flickering screen, the one that showed his own face from a cafeteria camera, kneeling under humiliation. The image froze there, broadcast, worldwide.
In Washington, the Bureau's senior officials weren't celebrating. One director slammed his hand on the desk. "He went rogue. He blew the entire operation live." Another replied, "And now half the country thinks we're complicit." Dr. Carter's voice crackled through their secure line. "Then maybe it's time you start acting like the Bureau you pretend to be." And she hung up. That night, the prison buzzed again.
But it wasn't violence this time. It was realization. The guards who had mocked Eli now stood outside the admin wing, waiting for interviews. Inmates whispered the same word over and over. Ghost. Rico, bandaged and broken, sat on the edge of his bunk. "He's not one of us," he said to Spider quietly. Spider shook his head. "No, he's something else." Carter found him in the quiet corner of the chapel, sitting alone in the flickering candlelight. "You made history tonight," she said. He didn't look up. "History's just noise until someone learns from it." She stepped closer. "They want you to debrief tomorrow. After that, they'll decide where to send you next." "I'm not going anywhere," he said. You mean, I started this inside. I'll finish it inside. Until I know this place stays clean." "Eli, the Bureau can't protect you here anymore." He finally turned toward her, eyes calm but unreadable. "They never could." The bell rang outside, the night count. She left without another word. Eli sat in the half-dark, listening to the sound of footsteps fade. The fight wasn't over. It had just changed shape. He whispered to himself, barely audible, "Tomorrow, the ghosts come out."
Ravenhill at 3:11 a.m. was a different world. No laughter, no deals, just the hum of old lights and the soft scrape of boots on concrete. Eli lay on his bunk with his eyes open, counting the breaths between corridor checks. 6 steps, pause, radio click. 6 steps back. The rhythm of a place pretending to be calm. Vega rolled over on the lower bunk. "You hear it?" he whispered. Eli listened. Far off, past C-block, a door opened and closed with no corresponding key beep. Another door answered it, not bureau procedure. "I hear it," Eli said. He sat up, laced his boots, and stood by the bars. He didn't look like a target. He looked like a man who had outlived too many ambushes to be surprised anymore. The corridor camera blinked, a micro flicker no one but him would catch. Then the red light died. The lens turned to stone. "Someone just bought themselves a blind spot," Eli murmured. Vega slid off the bunk. "We hiding or moving?" "Neither," Eli said. "We're going to make them show their hands." He pressed his knuckles lightly to the metal, 3 soft taps, the old field signal that meant eyes up. Down the tier, 2 older lifers glanced his way and gave the slightest nods. Ravenhill had its own communication network now. You didn't need phones when you had rhythm. A shadow detached from the stairwell, another from the shower vestibule. Not inmates. 3 men in correctional uniforms moved like they'd rehearsed the route. One carried a tool bag too heavy for tools. The lead stopped at Eli's cell. "Inmate Cross, warden's office, transfer hearing." "At 3 a.m., Vega said. "He's gone." "New acting warden. Paperwork already signed." Eli turned his wrists toward the slot. "Then let's not keep him waiting." The cuffs closed, too tight, on purpose. Eli didn't flinch. Vega held his stare. "I'm right behind you." "No," Eli said softly. "You're in front of me. Keep count of the doors." They walked, past the chapel, past the admin wing, not the route to any hearing. "How many doors?" Eli asked without turning his head. Too many," Vega muttered. At the 3rd junction, the lead man swiped a card, then palmed a key. Old brass, not digital. The door to the old infirmary opened, breathing out the smell of iodine and dust. A 4th man waited inside, not a guard, hair too neat, shoes too clean, a little scar by the ear where a surveillance bud sits when you don't want it seen. "Mr. Cross," he said, smiling the way men smile when they think they've already won. "Your 15 minutes are over." "Director," Eli said. The smile didn't change. "You still remember my voice?" Hard to forget the man who wrote the op that broke 3 of my ribs and called it acceptable collateral. The director's eyes flicked toward the bag. Evidence leaves tonight, so do you. Feet first? Eli asked. If necessary. Vega took a step forward. The nearest faux guard pressed a baton to his chest. Back up. Eli's voice didn't rise. You're making this worse than prison ever did. The director sighed. You blew a controlled investigation live. You embarrassed people who signed checks with flags on them. You think your little press feed makes you untouchable? I think it makes you choose between killing me in a federal facility on a night when every camera is supposed to work. He glanced up at the black eye on the ceiling. Or stepping into the light you've avoided your whole career. The director nodded at the bag. Do it. A baton lifted. A taser crackled. The old infirmary lights flickered and surged back on, brighter than they'd been in years. Every camera in the room glowed red. A tiny click came from the vent. Dr. Carter's old relay reawakened like a ghost in the wall. The director's smile finally broke. What did you do? Eli's answer was simple. I cleaned. The door behind them opened. Not more fake guards. 4 inmates in state blues stood there, hands behind their heads. Rico, Spider, and 2 others who once would have killed for sport, now shaking like they were standing on a cliff. Rico's voice was low. You rang Ghost? The nearest fake guard swung the baton toward Rico's face. Spider took the hit, absorbing it with a grunt that sounded like penance. The baton came up again. And the corridor thundered with real boots, real command voices, the thunder of a dozen agents who'd been waiting for the moment the prisoner network signaled, now. Federal agents, drop weapons, hands where we can see them. The taser clattered to tile. The baton rolled into a drain. The tool bag slid off a table and spilled. 2 suppressed pistols, zip ties, burner phones, an envelope with a single handwritten line. Spectre 1. No recovery. Dr. Carter stepped through the door, eyes hard enough to cut steel. Director, I'll take that resignation now. He straightened his collar, like a man adjusting the mask on a sinking stage. You have no idea who you're crossing. On the contrary, I know exactly who I'm crossing, and I'm doing it on camera. He looked up at the red lights. For the first time, he looked small. Cuff him, Carter said. They did. Eli exhaled, long and slow, and glanced toward Spider, who was cradling his forearm where the baton had landed. Spider didn't meet his eyes. You shouldn't have stepped in. Spider swallowed. I owed somebody for the last time I didn't. Rico stared at the bag on the floor. They were going to ghost you for real. I nodded. They still might try, just not in here. They stepped close. You good? I'm breathing. Good enough, Vega said.
By the time the sun pushed a thin line of light across the yard, Ravenhill felt like a chest exhaling after a long, crushing wait. The director and his hired uniforms were loaded into vans. The Bureau's internal affairs wolves, men and women who kept their heads down until it mattered, took statements like surgeons harvesting truth. A transport bus waited by the sallyport, not for Eli, for the guards who had worn the wrong loyalties too long. Rico stood with his hands on the chain link, watching the bus doors close. You think any of them ever thought they were the good guys? He asked. Everyone's the hero of the story they tell themselves, Eli said. And you? You the hero? No, Eli said. I'm the janitor. I just take out the trash. Spider snorted. That's the first time a janitor ever scared me more than a warden. Across the yard, Dr. Carter finished a call and walked over. She stopped a respectful distance away, like a friend who knows when not to step too close. Internal signed off. Directors suspended pending indictment. Field teams are at the offshore accounts you dragged back up from the basement. You blew the roof off the whole thing. He nodded once. Buildings need skylights. Her eyes softened. You could go. Right now. New papers, new life, somewhere with better coffee. He looked at the block tiers. Faces in narrow frames. Men who'd memorized the rhythm of boots like he had. You'll need someone to write the first draft of the playbook. From the floor, not the tower. The ghost protocol, she said. Call it whatever the donors will fund, he said. Just make sure it works when the cameras aren't watching. She didn't argue. You won't sign your name to it? I don't want statues. They collect pigeons. Vega laughed. Man wants a mop closet named after him. Not even that. Just keep the closet unlocked.
They set up folding chairs in the chapel because it was the only room with enough light and enough seats. Agents on one side, inmates on the other. A thin aisle between lives that rarely sat in the same air without a wall. An assistant U.S. attorney read the charges for the first round of corrupted staff. Conspiracy, racketeering, obstruction, violent civil rights violations. The words echoed against the stone like hammer blows. No one clapped. Then something stranger. A microphone rolled toward the inmate's side. Victim impact, the attorney said. If anyone wishes. No one moved. Then Rico stood. He didn't look at the agents, he looked at the floor. I ain't a victim, he said. I made my own hell in here. But I'll say this. His voice thinned, then steadied. If that man, he lifted his chin at Eli, hadn't kept his hands at his sides as long as he did, half this place would still be playing dog for dirty money. He sat. Spider remained standing, one hand on the back of the pew. I used to think being feared kept you alive. Now I think being useful does. The thing he did, he made us useful against the thing we built. He sat down, hard, like his knees forgot what to do. No one said the word forgiveness. No one needed to. Change in prison is slow until it isn't. Within a week, posted rules doubled as promises. Cameras with redundant power, grievance reviews with outside readers, work assignments assigned by seniority and safety, not kickbacks. They started a mentorship hour every evening. Not a feel-good circle, skills. How to write a letter that gets read. How to speak to a judge without spitting your anger all over the one person who might listen. How to breathe through a moment you're certain will end you. Vega ran point. Spider taught literacy with the same stubborn focus he once used to count contraband. Rico kept the weight pit honest. No more accidents, no more recruiting meat for protection rackets. On day 10, a laminated sheet appeared on the chapel bulletin board. No title. Just 12 lines in block print. Stand, don't posture. See, don't stare. Breathe before you answer. Never fight the first fight. Choose the second like a surgeon. Protect the weak even if it's you. Cameras are a mirror. Act like it. If you owe, pay. If you're owed, ask once. Write it down. Paper keeps lies small. Know 3 ways out of every room. Count the doors. Clean up when you leave. Someone had brought a Sharpie. Under the last line, in handwriting that tried and failed not to shake, someone had added, Ghost Code. Eli didn't sign it. He didn't have to. Good stories end. Real ones taper and spike. 2 weeks into the reforms, a package arrived in the mailroom.
It came with the same fake return address 3 previous shipments had used, apparently a vendor who supplied mop heads. Vega sliced the tape and stared at the stack of microfiber. "You order spot, eh?" he joked, then saw the phone buried in the middle, the kind that wakes on a vibration and starts a timer with too many numbers. "Back!" he shouted. The bomb squad did their work. Later, a text said it would have killed anyone in a 6-foot cone. Another message from outside. Ghosts who scrub too hard get erased. That night, Eli found Rico at the fence, jaw tight, eyes hot. "Say the word. We got people who still answer when I call." Eli shook his head. "No more ghosts like that." "So what then? We just eat it?" "We outlast it," Eli said. "And we keep it boring for the people who crave a show." Rico kicked the dirt. "You and your boring." "It's how we win," Eli said. "It's how we stop being content." He nodded at the block. "You want to be a legend? Keep the weights from turning into 2 a.m. war drums. In here, quiet is revolutionary." Rico didn't smile, but something unclenched. "Quiet, I can do."
Eli's release papers came folded in a manila envelope with too many stamps and too few apologies. Time served. Federal commendation redacted. No press, no parade, just a line to sign and a gate to pass through. He stood there longer than a man should, envelope in one hand, the other on the cold steel of a door he had entered under a name that was never meant to be spoken in here. Vega leaned against the frame. "You gonna make me say something dramatic?" "Please don't," Eli said. Vega held out a cheap pen. "Take it. It writes when it's upside down." He pocketed it. Useful. They bumped shoulders like men who'd learned to say more without saying it. Spider ambled over, awkward in daylight. "I wrote something," he muttered, thrusting a folded paper at Eli like it might bite. "Not like good, but words." Eli unfolded it. 5 sentences, no flair. "I won't be the man they paid me to be. If I am, stop me. If you can't, tell Vega. If Vega can't, tell Rico. If Rico can't, tell you. If you can't, we didn't listen hard enough." Eli folded it back and tucked it into the same pocket as the pen. "You listened," he said. Spider nodded, eyes wet and furious about it. Rico didn't come to the gate. He was in the weight pit, spotting a kid who hadn't learned yet where to put his feet. Some goodbyes are better unsaid. Dr. Carter waited by the outer door, hands in the pockets of a coat that had seen too many bad mornings. "You have somewhere to go?" she asked. "Always," Eli said. "You'll call?" "No," he said, "but I'll answer." She didn't ask for more. He signed. The door buzzed. The sky outside was the same color as any other sky, and somehow different anyway. He stepped through. He didn't go far. A week later, in a community gym that used to be a warehouse, a man in a plain gray hoodie taught a class at 6 a.m. No belts, no ranks, just breath, balance, and how to leave a room you didn't want to be in without making a second enemy on the way out. A poster on the wall said Foundation in block letters. Under it, smaller, Real Power Protects. Vega ran the sign-in sheet. Spider corrected people's commas. A kid who used to bench to the rhythm of his own rage learned to count doors instead. Eli kept his voice low and his hands steady. He didn't tell war stories. He taught how not to need them. Sometimes the door opened, and a man from inside Ravenhill stood there blinking in the bright light, the way men do when the weather changes inside their head. Sometimes the man stayed. Sometimes he didn't. The door stayed unlocked, either way. They asked for an interview.
he said no, and then once he said yes. One camera, one take, no cuts. "Why didn't you fight back sooner?" the unseen voice asked. Eli looked at the lens like it was a man telling himself a story. "Because the first punch isn't the fight, it's the trap. The fight is what you choose after you've taken it." "Do you forgive them?" "I don't carry them," he said. "That's enough." Ravenhill didn't turn into a church. It turned into a place where fewer men bled on Tuesdays. The news cycle moved on, the hashtags dulled, the ghost protocol got folded into a budget line with a name only accountants remember. But at 3:11 a.m., the corridor checks still clicked by at 6 steps each way. And sometimes, a man on a top bunk would open his eyes, count with them, and feel his breath match a rhythm that wasn't fear anymore. He'd sit up, lace his boots, stand by the bars. Somewhere down the tier, 3 soft taps would travel the metal, eyes up, and he'd tap back, "I see you." And that would be enough to carry one more night. If you were Eli, holding power, patience, and the chance to end it early, would you have waited for justice to land or swung first? Tell me, honestly, what you would have done and why.